Back again with another episode of Please Call Me Crazy, the Family Friends edition with the great Jason Whitlock. It's a pleasure to have you back on, Jason. We always appreciate you taking out the time from your busy schedule to bless us with your company. Yeah, and we're doing it a bit sooner than we had originally. We waited about 20 episodes, and the great Jason Whitlock said that's far too long to wait to get this conversation going. And we had a great interview last time, and we're circling back again sooner than that even. We'd love to have Jason Whitlock on as much as possible, once a week if we can get you. You know, the audience loves it. Our Getter audience loves it. They stream Please Call Me Crazy every episode on the War Room's Getter page, and the MAGA War Room audience just absolutely loves you. Today let's get right into the madness. Tucker Carlson yesterday on his Twitter, his new Twitter endeavor, or for now at least, it's a Twitter endeavor. Tucker on Twitter made some pretty audacious claims for a guy who was just recently in the mainstream. I mean, even for Tucker, this is a bit out there in the deep waters, in a good way, in my opinion, in a good way. Everything's fair game. If they're gonna, if Rachel Maddow is gonna go right on national television and say, we're indicting Trump, if he wants to get out of this indictment, all he has to do is bow out of his candidacy. There are no rules. There's nothing that's off limits. So I like that Tucker's playing hardball. We all should learn to play hardball even more. You certainly doing your show, which is why I love it. Tell me first of all, what Tucker discussed, because I know you discussed it as well in recent weeks. Maybe Tucker's taking a cue from his good friend Jason. What's your take on the implications of Obama's sexuality, what it means for this LGBTQ policy, that's come to take over this nation in recent memory?
So I'll say that I just want to enter into the record. Haven't talked to Tucker in 2 or 3 weeks, no communication. And so I last night when he released his latest episode, I was surprised. I literally earlier in the day before he released it, I was like, man, I wonder what Tucker's up to. When's he gonna do another one? And then 2 hours later, it pops up, and yeah, he politely alluded to Obama's sexuality in making an argument about how our taboos are changing, what can and can't be discussed, what can and can't be questioned is changing, and just how there was a time when infidelity was a disqualifying thing for a presidential candidate. And then he made the point that, but by 2008, no one cared about sexual politics, to the point that Obama's very suspicious, as Tucker said, creepy sexuality that seemed pretty obvious wasn't even discussed. And Charlie Kirk, I think, was the first person I saw do this, but everybody immediately started tweeting out, "Hey, did Tucker Carlson just allude to the fact that Obama's gay?" And so when I saw that, and when I watched it for my own eyes, and then I saw people's reaction, Royce, I got to be honest, my first thoughts were, and I don't mean there's no negative to what I'm saying, but the first thing I was like, I think Tucker watched me and Royce on Fearless on Monday or Tuesday and said, you know what? Well, Whitlock and Royce are talking, it makes a lot of sense that, a guy goes from, particularly Pride Month, and you start looking at the history of Pride Month, and you start looking at the fact that Obama in 2011 is the guy that added all the extra letters to the LGB movement, or the LG movement at that time. He added the B and the T and made room for the Q and the I and the A and all the other
Yeah.
stuff. And it's like, wow, what a coincidence that Obama would be that guy. And then what a coincidence, and we didn't even go here, boys, but I think in Newsweek magazine had Obama on its cover as the first gay
Yeah.
president. And so these issues and this topic has been circulating for a long time, and there's a lot of questions about Obama's the parentage or who sired Obama's kids. The head of the Obama Foundation just happens to look exactly like Obama's oldest daughter. Uh, the head of the Obama Foundation's wife just happens to look just like the youngest daughter of the Obamas. And there have been, long internet rumors about Michelle Obama and the inside joke of Big Mike and all that. And I think where we're at in America and how important the LGBTQIA plus silent P alphabet mafia has become, and it's clear they have an outsized influence. We need to start looking at the origins and all the different connections and who might be controlled by what I like to call the alphabet mafia. And Obama is a prime candidate in my mind. And so I don't think Tucker's remotely out of bounds. I don't think we were remotely out of bounds having the discussion that we had. That I ain't got to drag you into it. It was my monologue conversation I wanted to have. You participated in, but it was a calculated decision on my part to just like, hey man, this is what America is talking about, and so much of the mainstream media never addresses
Yeah.
what America is actually talking about. You would think that America was all sitting around, oh, man, these Proud Boys and what they've done to our country, the Oath Keepers and all the hell they're raising all over the country. You would think that's the predominant conversation. That's not it. And so what is it is like, man, just a few years ago, this whole alternative gay lifestyle thing was 2, 3, 4% of the population. Why are they now 50% of the conversation? And why is the entire country adjusting around their sensibilities, their sensitivity? How did we get to where teachers need to be talking to little kids about what their gender identity is and whether they need surgery and whether we should hide it from the parents? How did all this happen? And did Obama play a role in that? I think it's all fair discussion. I think it's all necessary discussion. I'm glad Tucker brought it out. I'm just glad Tucker's refusing to be silenced in this time and then putting that issue on the table. And this is why he was so dangerous at Fox News is he would put topics on the table that the rest of corporate media was ignoring, and he was making them look bad and making them look dishonest. And that's why they had to banish him to the
Yeah.
internet. And you know, and I think it's becoming crystal clear to any American whose eyes are open. The best information and the most honest conversation is actually happening on the internet.
Yeah, no doubt. A lot of things. First, the and I sort of alluded to this when we talked the other day on Fearless about Joe Biden is like part of me doesn't even like when we go to this place with the politics, with the gossip and the rumors and the speculation. Um, uh, Primarily, right? Like if I'm going to say I'm not going to vote for Joe Biden, it's because he's a shill for the CCP. It's because he's a sellout, once a sellout, always a sellout. He'll sell out for anything for expediency. I don't need him to be a sexual deviant or predator to give me a hard line no on Joe Biden. But I do think that in the same vein, I do think all of this is fair game to discuss, and it gives us insight into people's motivation, especially Obama, and what you have to be 100%, what you have to acknowledge 100%, because they admit that Barack Obama did more for the LGBTQ movement politically than any other president in the history of this country. And in fact, Amy Dean, who is a writer for Tikkun magazine, which is one of the, New York Times, so to speak, in that same vein for Israel and the Jewish community around the world. Tikkun is a very old and very popular Jewish publication. She goes right out and admits that not only Barack Obama, but Barack Obama, with the help of the secular Jewish political lobby, is solely responsible for the advancements in gay marriage. And, I'm not for gay marriage. I know that you said early on the show this week that you weren't for gay marriage. But, what they're trying to do is they are trying to create the circumstances of a caricature, the circumstance for a caricature to be the pitfall of the conservative movement and the Republican Party. That's their real goal. The goal isn't even about sexual deviancy per se, because whatever they won't do out in the light, they'll find a way to do in the dark. I understand that. I think we all understand. The Jeffrey Epsteins of the world show us they'll find a secret island, buy it, and they'll make it their little sex trafficking getaway. I love when Alex Jones just gave the entire nation and the entire world audience a gut punch when they asked him about politicians colluding in sex trafficking in his trial there, and he goes, "You mean like the Clintons did with the Epsteins?" It's one of the greatest moments in American history, I think, of just straight up, sandbagging the establishment. But they'll find a way to do these things. The real issue is that they are using the LGBTQ as a political vehicle to call us extreme. And so I try to add the guardrails. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Once I thought more about our
Mm-hmm.
conversation, and you know, I I get that your position on Biden is like, man, this dude sold us out to China. That's the real
Yeah.
issue. The, and here's where I think you're mistaken. If we roll the clock back and let's say it's 1904, you would be right. China is the real issue. But, and I can't remember the year exactly, I have to look it up. But once they let women in to vote, like they got other real issues than what we consider real issues. And so kids motivate women and will drive their policy decisions more than what's going on in China.
Mm.
It's like, and so this whole LGBT issue, why it's important, why the transgender issue is important, and why what Matt Walsh is doing is very, very important. Women have been given the right to vote. Women take their voting privileges seriously. They have been they've been swayed and convinced out of sensitivity and everybody inclusiveness, blah blah blah, that they got to go along with all this leftist stuff. And so for us as men to sit here and say, okay, baby, listen, I get that. You want to be inclusive. But damn it, they come into our schools with your baby in that school with drag queens. The teachers want to sexualize your kids, your babies. Baby, this is why we can't stand with them. And this is why this is such an important issue. They are allowed to vote. They have 53% of the population. This is an issue that reaches them in a way that China never will. They could care less. If we're under Chinese control in a communist party, they'll be like, well, hold on, are my bills getting paid? Do I have a man? You know, is the heat running? Blah blah blah. They'll be fine. Me and you won't be fine because we need some freedom. We need to be allowed to be ourselves and just do our natural instincts and blah. We need dominion. We need to feel like we're in control of our destiny. The kid, what's going on with the kids will move these women and open their eyes to like, hey, there's repercussions to this inclusiveness and sensitivity and let's don't hurt anybody's
Mm-hmm.
feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you cannot make decisions based on that and protect your child.
Mm.
It's a very fundamental issue that again I get as a man, it's like I'm concerned about China as a woman, and not that you're not concerned about your child, which you are, but in order to motivate your woman to get in line with your thinking, we have to have this
Well,
issue.
let's dive into that a bit. Before we do, Tanner, turn down whatever's coming out of your headphones because I can hear it over here. If it's coming out of the Mac speakers or the headphone, I don't know, but turn it down because I can hear it over here. Okay. Um, okay, let's break this down for a second here. Because yes, uh, you would hope that women could be reached through this issue and the absurdity of this issue. But if you go back far enough, you realize that uh, the women's rights movement, the inception of the women's rights movement, the right to vote, even the suffrage movement, women in the workplace after World War II, women giving their children over to the public school system in the first place was a symbol of their sort of resignation from the dominant parental role in their kid's life. And it was all of us. I mean, women tradition. We talk about a man needing to be there to raise children, and yes, he does need to be there. There needs to be an authority and a father figure there to optimally raise children. But let's be clear: since time immemorial, women were the ones who raised good men, and that's kind of the craziness of this whole modern, equal parenting sort of facade that's been waged on the American people and the American mindset. Men went off to war, men went off to work, and women raised sons in the light of the man that they were with, or in the man that ran the village, or the man that led the community. So women have a huge role in raising strong men, men with character, men that reflect the honor and the sacred honor, the national honor, the faith of their husbands or of their fathers or of the men in the community. I mean, sometimes a man goes off to war and he dies. Okay, there's still a grandfather, there's an uncle, there's an elderman, there's a religious leader, and the woman's job in history has been to raise those children that way. As soon as they went into the workplace and the public school system became this daycare program, I have huge concerns that women really care what their children are being taught on a
But I disagree. Look, there's the hardcore, uh, confused, angry woman that isn't concerned about being a parent.
mm,
You're right, but that's not most women. I watched a documentary this morning from I think the woman's name was Jennifer Billick or something like that. She's a hardcore feminist. She was breaking down the insanity of the transgender issue.
mm,
I listened to her for 40 straight minutes say for I'd say 39 of those minutes, every word that came out of her mouth, me and you would be in perfect alignment with.
mm,
The trans issue has made her jump to our side. And she doesn't even know that she's jumped to our
yeah,
side. I'm just listening to her talk, and everything she's saying and this isn't some, I'm just going to keep it real. This wasn't some super attractive woman. This was, the typical 55 to 60-year-old woman, well past her prime, longtime feminist. She's breaking down just small little points about like, hey, they're off in the transgender
yeah,
crowd is often a level of delusion where they won't even accept just simple factual things that women, not only are we born shorter, but our limbs are smaller. And she didn't say God, but she said our hands are smaller because we deal with babies. A man's hands aren't really the best for dealing with tiny babies. Ours are. And that's by
yeah,
design.
yeah.
And so she's wakening to like, oh my God, this is where this feminism has taken us. Again, she's not fully ready to acknowledge that, her political point of view and mindset created this insanity, but she is certainly hostile towards this transgender issue and what it's doing to kids. That was her whole
Well,
point
yeah,
of
and,
view.
and no,
What is
no, and look, and I think that they've overreached their hand with the transgender and the LGBTQ stuff. I really do. I think this could be a straw that breaks the camel's back. That's why I said the other day, all of you guys who are the leaders of the conservative conversation right now should just get on one accord. I don't care how the money's split up. I don't care what the business relationship is. I don't care about any of that. I mean a coordination of messaging and a strategic plan to reach all of these people who are very disaffected by these LGBTQ or this chapter of LGBTQ politics and how absurd it's gotten. So I think there is an opportunity, but I think in order to capitalize on that opportunity in the most optimal way, there is going to have to be a recognition from women who loosely associated with the feminist movement after the cosmopolitan era. There is going to have to be an acknowledgement from many of these women that it was their own naivety and their own narcissism that led to this where we are today, and it really was. I mean, the women's rights movement coupled with the civil rights movement, then came the gay rights movement, and now you have there's no such thing as a man or a woman. This is all from the same political lineage. I mean, as far as activism goes, as far as corporations go, as far as the sentiment and spirit of the American people and what we allowed, what became normalized for political expediency or economic and professional expediency, this is all from the same tree. And if they can't admit that, in the end, then the next iteration of what the LGBTQ movement is now, it'll be something else, and it might be even crazier than what we have now. Because what I'm saying is the LGBT, these women who are now looking and saying you're throwing a 6'6" man in a pool with a woman. This isn't fair to us. This isn't fair to women. This isn't fair to our children or my sovereignty as a mother. Um, they're only doing it because it's coming to bear on them, right? It's and my point.
I don't care what's waking them up, Royce.
Well, but I
Here,
get it. But my point is, I know that yes, again, but we have to understand this. They got a 200-year head start on us with some of this stuff. We've got to get to the root of that. There has to be a spiritual awakening. Spiritual awakenings don't start on the top water. They start down in the root. You have to understand what's taking place. You have to really.
okay, Royce. Here's what I'm saying. What a minister looks for is an opportunity for common ground and understanding. So then you can come in. Because I'm telling you, I'm listening to this feminist woman, probably 60 years old, maybe 65. She's secular, but she has said so much during this 40 minutes I'm watching this that I'm like, oh, I or I could send a minister in there and now he's got fertile territory to get her to understand the gospel because she's now starting to see the ramifications of her flawed political ideology that she bought into. And so, again, transgenderism to me is a great crime. And it's connected, and she was connecting it to transhumanism. She understood the whole big picture of this. And so this is all a great crime. And so what I'm pushing back on you as you focus on issues that because some of this seems so simple to you that you're just further down the road. It's like China and these other things. But when you have a crime, in order to get the jury to convict, you have to go to motive. You have to prove motive. And so that's where this gossip or whatever this conversation about the Obamas, the conversation about Joe Biden and what went on with his daughter and all this, it starts getting at, well, what's the motive for these individual people? Why are they co-signing this great crime of transgenderism and transhumanism and all this other stuff? What's the motive? And so once you start unpacking the motive, then the jury starts going, okay, now walk me through the other pieces and how this all connects. But they got to understand motive first. And that's the only way I'm saying to you is don't diminish these issues. It's not just gossip. It's trying to get people to, what president, well, hey, I'm going to get in office and, I allegedly grew up in Reverend Wright's church and I'm a
Yeah.
Christian who then pivots and says, you know what? We're going to add bisexuals, queers, and transgenders to Pride Month and blah, blah, blah. I'm going to disavow all this. What would be his motive? Well, maybe he's gay. Maybe his wife ain't who she says she is. And there's some evidence out here that, circumstantial, but circumstantial evidence plays in criminal court out here that, here's potential motive. So I just think these I take my mother, who is a high priestess in that Democratic cult. The issues going on with transgenders and the issues going on with the LGBTQ, they're the only things that I've ever seen move her. Everything else, she would you go in and talk to her about China and what they're doing. My mother's a manufacturer. She raised us as a factory worker. Trump, America first, bringing manufacturing jobs. You would think that would resonate with her. She's a 30-year factory worker. All of her friends basically factory workers. My dad started out as a factory worker.
Yeah.
Oh, none of it. But this LGBT stuff stops her in her tracks and has made her back up off. She ain't gonna never jump sides. It doesn't seem like she'd rather die than jump sides. But it has backed her up and made her, because I can go. Mama, this isn't consistent Christianity. Here it is, right here in the Bible. But you know this for a fact. You're in these high dollar Bible study. It's the only thing that moves her. And so when you start thinking about what moves women, kids, sexualizing kids, uh, phony sexual backgrounds of high leaders that perhaps hide their real agenda, that type of stuff moves them.
And I no, listen, I agree with you. I think that the LGBTQ movement should be the lightning rod, okay, for the narrative, for the messaging. No doubt, because let's put it to a test. If we want to have if we think we have the nation we do underneath the surface of political corruption, and we want to have the nation we say we want to have, then starting off with the children being protected and rebuilding this country the right way is a cornerstone, of course. My only point is that um, the women who are now starting to reject this LGBTQ movement, they want to treat it as though these transgenders came out of nowhere with this political power. The women's political movement, the women's rights political movement, activated the LGBTQ as a political weapon. It was their rights being extended, their fight being extended, the LGBTQ becoming an extension of their political fight that has blown this whole thing out. I mean, that's why you see.
You remind me of you remind me so much of my younger self, Royce. Because you know what you want,
Yeah.
which is never going to happen. You want a woman to stand in front of you and say, "Baby, I'm wrong." It's never going to happen. She's going to move on. She's going to admit she's wrong by moving
No, no,
on.
no, no, no,
But
no.
cop to it.
No, 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 no,
Cop.
no, no. Listen, listen, listen. It's not about me. Listen, this isn't about me. This isn't about appeasing. This ain't about satisfying my view of the world. This is about God. And the real issue is, since time immemorial, the rift between men and women and God, and the resentment that women hold, the deep existential and spiritual resentment that women hold toward God, has now manifested itself into political power. And so they have to admit that they're wrong before God for us to have a righteous nation. It ain't got nothing to do with Royce.
Well, I'm going to go to the Bible and disagree with you. When things went haywire in the garden, God showed up and said, "Adam, where are you?" He wasn't looking for Eve. He knows Eve's nature. Wasted time talking to her.
Mm-hmm.
Adam, what the hell did you allow to go on here? And don't hand me this woman. Don't tell me it was her. It's you. I left you in charge. And
Yeah.
so sitting around waiting on a woman to repent, waiting on a woman, not gonna happen. The only way man has to repent.
No doubt.
We and that's the only way she'll repent.
But no. Part of man. No, but the problem with this is a chicken. This is a chicken before the egg, cart before the horse kind of consideration, and I appreciate it, because I've always said on the show that the crisis of femininity is a failure of masculinity. I understand that, but the way that we failed, the way that men have failed, is that we allowed women to march around with their vagina and dictate the terms and the rules of engagement. That's the whole problem here. That none of these men would stand up to these women and say, you know what? That's absolutely unacceptable. You're wrong. I'm going to hold you accountable. I'm going to uh, put my foot down right here. This is the line. You've crossed that line, and no amount of me wanting to call you baby, as you put it, I don't want to call you baby. If need be, there ain't no more baby. There ain't no more me and you. If need be, you go over there in the bush and mess with the snake and the forbidden fruit if you want to. I'm going to go this way on my own because God comes before the pair bonding. That's what I'm saying. I actually agree with you. We failed women, but where we failed women is not trying to get them to admit their wrongs. We've completely abandoned trying to get them to see their wrongs. This whole happy wife, happy life, this whole, you can't never win an argument with a woman, right? Just if your wife is bothering you, go to the man cave with the lazy boy and the beer. That's what killed America. No doubt about it.
It is, but Royce, it's the reason they have so much control, and they do have control, and this cuts across racial and economic lines. They have control, and they've used their
Yeah.
vagina to seize
Yep.
control. There's no doubt about it. But and I don't want to shrink the conversation, but it's just so fresh in my mind. I just look at Zion Williams,
Mm.
typical man, in my view,
Hmm.
zero discipline. This guy is messing around with 304s, hoes. They call them
Yeah.
304s for any of your audience or whatever.
304s.
He mess around, and he doesn't even have the discipline to put a condom on to limit her control of him.
Mm.
And so, again, if men don't start understanding the masculinity of sexual discipline, of you know, I don't want to dirty up the conversation,
No, this is
but
this is the dirty podcast. Go ahead.
I get it. But what I'm saying, I don't want to put a distraction into the
Mm.
conversation to make. But my father used to brag about a certain kind of woman that would chase him. My father's a very good looking guy, very, Billy D. Williams type guy, and, hood famous. But he used to brag about the women that he wouldn't sleep with, refused to, wouldn't give him the satisfaction of in his, that's the way he would talk. And uh, we don't have that type of energy right now as men. Like, I wouldn't even give you. And yes, maybe physically you're attractive or whatever, but you're so degenerate. You're such an idiot. You're so trifling. You're not worthy of me servicing you. We don't. Now she has that mentality of like what she's got is so good that she's doing you a favor. We never take on that mentality. No, no, actually, I'm doing you a favor. And again, even down because it doesn't. You don't even have to prevent yourself from having sex with her. It would be best if you did, but just put a condom on and limit her power and control. Zion Williamson just knocked up a stripper who now has leverage over him for the next 18 years at a
Yeah.
minimum, perhaps for the rest of his life. This is the failure of men. We have no sexual discipline. We will throw our meat anywhere, and it's foolish and stupid. We don't teach our young boys that kind of mental discipline, that kind of the power of sexual discipline. There's a great power in masculinity, and we've totally abandoned it. And so yes, women are running amok because men are
Yeah.
simps,
No
and
doubt.
and
Cucks.
and
Yeah.
and we'll let anybody have our seed.
Okay. Okay.
Anybody, a total clown.
Okay. And I'm taking that criticism from the OG with great with gratitude, and I appreciate that perspective, and I agree with it. That's what I just laid out. I think, and since time immemorial, Adam should have let Eve go on that walk alone. If you want to go and disobey God, is going to hurt me. We're the only two here in the garden. I'm going to be alone, but I got to be ready to be alone in order to uphold the covenant with God.
If he's in his right mind, it's like, if God can do all of this, he'll give me somebody better.
Yeah. Well. Let's say this. I would say that the sexual, and many of our, some of the Hebrew Israelite brothers, some of our Muslim brothers, some of some of the people and different cultures from around the world, certainly the Mormons and all these people all these hardline Christians, Protestants mostly, but also Catholics. Catholic Church was certainly at the helm of letting the American government de-spiritualize the American people. But all of those hardliners have all of these sexual ethics, right? There's a lot of claims around moral and sexual ethics, and I'm not against it. I mean, I think, look, I think it's the one place, it's the hardest nut to crack. No pun intended. I didn't mean that to be a pun, but it really is the hardest and toughest nut to crack because our biology itself. See, the biology for women to disobey men, that's a cultural nature. Okay, that's something that has become very cultural. That's something that has become very political. Our biological nature is to reproduce. And when you think about the order of sin from a Christian standpoint, fundamentally, the order of sin for sexual immorality, if it can end and result in the reproduction of life, is still closer to the natural order than transhumanism, transgenderism, and feminism. Having sex with a whore, if it can produce a child, is closer to the natural order, God's natural order, than all of these perversions that they've been able to get momentum from in our religious rigidity, right? And you got to think, we've come to a place now, and I made this comment, and you tell me what you think about this, because I'm one of those guys who had a child out of wedlock when I was young, running around in the streets as an athlete, taking whatever I wanted, doing whatever I wanted, not whatever I wanted, within reason, always consensual. And there's a reason why that's come into prominence as well. They're going to use that against Donald Trump till the cows come home. You watch. But I had 2 children out of wedlock, or 2 children with a woman that I wasn't in a long-term relationship with. My other 2 children I had with my high school sweetheart, and sometimes when we were young, we were on and off, but ultimately we have that real long-term bond, right? Looking at the landscape now, I'm saddened by the prospect men face in trying to carry on their legacy. Have a child, find a woman who they can trust to marry, and then trust the institutions around that marriage to promote, support, and uphold that marriage. Everything we face in this country institutionally has been meant to not only delegitimize marriage itself, but childbearing and ultimately, the human species at the most fundamental level. So I'll give you an example, right? If men in today's world want or think they need to be married before they have a child, it will not be long at all before there are no more human beings. I mean, it just won't take long to have that population collapse. This is what Elon Musk, even in my skepticism, he actually talked about this openly. Like, no, I'm worried about a population collapse. I'm not worried about overpopulation like the globalists, because if we live in a sort of corporate dominant world, economically dominant world, not morals, not spiritual, not natural order, why would any man in his right mind get married today? 50% of marriages end in divorce. 80% of them are initiated by women. 90% if the woman is college educated. Why would a man in his right mind even get married to begin with? Especially, and so then the choice he faces is, well, if I'm not going to get married, then I can't have a child. Well, isn't that a convenient play for Satan? I mean, we have to start to take the Christian faith and not redefine the word or the book, not redefine the fundamentals, But around some of these cultural issues, we have to adapt them to the circumstance we face, like they did many times in the Bible. They had to adapt the will and the word and the tradition of God to what they faced in real time, or else it wouldn't be compatible. And I think right now, many of our Christian brothers and sisters have packed it in. You can see them in the comments. Oh, this is Sodom and Gomorrah. This is Babylon. The system must fall. Where are y'all going? They all think they're getting raptured, Jason. They all think they've been good enough Christians to be raptured when the rapture. I mean, you can see them talking about it. Who are y'all kidding? Who are y'all kidding? Y'all have not met the criteria of righteousness to make it into the gates of heaven. That's why the Messiah is going to have to come back and set things right again. There's 1,000 years of Christendom. I know people's lack of scriptural knowledge when I hear them talk this way, because most people are not going to make it. So if most people aren't going to make it, why are you trying to promote this sort of apocalyptic, throw in the towel, perspective towards politics and towards what we should do as people in today's world? Not you,
I'm
but
gonna,
them. I mean them, not you.
yeah, no. I'm gonna go back and and I don't know, and stop me, push me a different direction if I'm not answering your question directly. But I thought there was a question earlier that was provoking me to say, Royce, I'm going to defend women in this regard.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't. I've in the 56 years I've lived, the good men that I know have had no problem getting their woman to fall into obedience. It's and I look at the mistakes that I've made in my life and choices I've made, and I can't. This isn't 100% of the problems with the choices that I've made, but I know the biggest mistake, because again, some of it's just choice, some of it's just foolishness and silliness, but any guy that wants a real marriage, a real wife, and kids raised by a real woman, you're not going to do it without God. Not successful. And so that was the mistake. That was part of the mistake that I made. It's just like, and I don't want, because it's not a game, but it's the only word I can think of at the moment to convey what I'm trying to convey.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just like, there's dudes out here thinking they running game. You can't run game without the Bible. You're not going to get a woman to truly fall into obedience and get on your program without God. I tried to do it without God. God, and this is why I know that there's good women out there for every man, because I'm telling you, God sent me three women that would have been great. They're all married now. They're great mothers to their kids, and they're in successful marriages. God put them, handed them over to me first, and I was foolish and arrogant and just stupid, and wasn't really just ready to step to them in a real way because I wasn't right with God, and God was no part of my game plan relationship wise at that time, and so I look at and who knows what, I don't want to call names, but let's say I got a friend who's got his spiritual life in order, at least it appears to me. He got 7 kids with his wife, and she's happy in her role. I got another friend that got like 8 kids. I got a friend of dude got married and had 11 kids with his wife. And so, but they all led with the Bible, and so you can have all the kids you want with a woman that'll stand by you if you will serve God and she sees you clearly serving God, she'll fall in line. And so when I look at women just completely out of line and out of control, I'm like, that's because we're not in order. They're not following us if we just making it up. It's just the Jason Whitlock game plan. They're not gonna follow that. If it's, oh well, Jason's following God's game plan, you can turn an atheist woman. She'll follow that. She just has never really seen it. And so once she sees it, she'll be attracted to it. It's that's and I know there'll be, oh, I know my buddy, he went to church every Sunday and his wife still cheated on him. But, you know, we don't know all the details. And yes, there's aberrations or whatever, but
No, I don't think
uh,
I would strongly disagree here. I just I
go ahead. Go ahead.
the level of the pervasiveness, the prevailing feminist ideology is rampant through the church. It's not rampant through the white liberal LGBTQ activists. It's rampant in the church, in the Catholic Church, in the Protestant churches. These are the places where women have come to dominate again, I mean, if you go down to the roots of this thing, radical.
I wasn't talking about the church, though. I was talking about me following
No,
God.
no, no, no. I get that, but okay. But if you're following God without a religious guide or a spiritual guide or institution, then you're doing a far better job than anybody did in the time of Jesus. Because even in the time of Jesus, they needed spiritual guidance, which is why Jesus,
Of course.
turned over the tables in the temple, because he took special exception to those who took up the role of spiritual guide and leader and then misguided and misinformed the people. He held a special contempt from them. You can tell by his rage in the temple. But again, this all boils down to radical materialism. This is why I talked about the 501c3 thing. So we have to understand culture. The part of, and my best friend, the great AJ Barker, you should go back and watch that interview. He talked about the boomers having this syndrome of taking the personal and applying it to the collective, right? That there are collective issues, there are collective syndromes of the people that have been worked on by collections of people, and one of those syndromes is taking a person, like, at the root of it, we're talking about this radical material society we built, consumerism. And somewhere along the line, our religious institutions and our religious practitioners, um, and I would agree with you in this way, but it's the why. It's not that man didn't want to necessarily follow God. It's that we made this little caveat. We made this little exception that because we live in an industrialized society, that my job and my economy, the economy of me individually, but the economy writ large as well, is the mechanism by which I can be that provider for my woman and child. So in doing so, if I have to renounce fundamental parts of my faith, then so be it. Because first and foremost, God tells us to be a protector and provider. Well, then here comes the state to tell the church, hey, if you want to get a little tax break, right? If you want to be protected by the federal government, is what they're really saying, you take a status and now you can't talk about politics. And in those politics came the wave of feminism that prevails in the religious institution and religious community today. And plenty of women that are Christian, Catholic, oh, yeah, my husband he's not satisfying me. He's not romantic enough anymore. There's not a spark there. He doesn't make me happy anymore. I don't get goosebumps. He doesn't give me the attention I need. They don't, Christian women and Catholic women, and
That's not a Christian woman.
but there's
Because
people who say
she
they're
would
Christian and
know
people who are.
she would know you don't get married to be happy. That's not the purpose of
But
marriage.
but wait. But Jason, the entire ritual of marriage in the Christian and Catholic community is this narcissistic, feminist based soiree, posh, aristocratic soiree around the woman and her happiness, and it's
And
her
that's
day.
why and that's why every man needs to get out a Bible and have his own relationship and understanding of that
Yeah,
word. Because if you get caught up in what your church and everybody at the church is doing, you're going to get caught up in those rituals, and you will enter into a relationship and into a marriage thinking, oh, you know what? This person marrying is primarily responsible for my happiness, or is going to be a 50% contributor to my
yeah.
happiness, and that's what this marriage is about. and it's bogus. That's not what it's about.
I mean, think
And
about
so,
think about this, Jason. Just tell me what you think about this. You used to be out there in the nightlife. I certainly was out there in the nightlife at a time. Little less than most of my counterparts. I really I was the life of the party when I was out there, but I always knew the dangers and I weighed the dangers and the risk of being out there too much because it's just like people getting shot at nightclubs or on the corner. It's not that much fun. But I was out there a little bit. But just think about how common the idea of bachelor and bachelorette parties are for every wedding. I mean, it's not that's not an anomaly. That's not rare or unique. It's almost like a cultural tradition for men and women to have bachelor and bachelorette parties to accompany their weddings. And I'm like, what part of the tradition is this? I don't even see that as a real
Royce,
tradition.
Royce, and you're talking to somebody. If you talk to my friends, that was my whole reputation. That Jason Whitlock threw the greatest bachelor parties. of it. I had a friend that literally said he wanted to renew his vows so I could throw him a second bachelor party, and I'm not joking. It's just that was that was my. Everybody
God.
wanted me to be their best man,
Yeah.
or they wanted me heavily involved in their wedding because I was going to have the greatest bachelor
Mhm.
party. And so, yeah, I'm very much aware of what the world has turned marriage and that whole ceremony and ritual into.
So you're saying, but
I used to work on the staff for the devil.
what you're saying
Yeah.
is what you're saying at bottom is that if man renewed his faith in God and had a stronger faith in God, that in the places where marriage could be successful, because there are going to be some people who just reject God. That's told to us in Scripture. That's just what it is. But where there is an opportunity for marriage and family to be successful, God has to be at the center of it, and then it has a shot to prevail.
No
I agree
question.
with that.
No,
Yeah, I agree with
if
you
the man
100%.
is following God and he's turning around, teaching his woman, and he's leading the study of the Bible in his home, and his understanding is being transferred to her. That's the cycle that's prescribed in the Bible. Man serves God. Man, man serves God. Man turns around and serves his woman like she's the church. Uh, that's the proper cycle. We don't have that proper cycle. In many
Yeah,
homes, the woman is the spiritual
no
leader.
doubt.
She's the prayer
Yeah.
warrior. She knows the Bible better than the man.
Mm.
And certainly has a better mouthpiece. She's been trained to debate since coming out of the womb. And I see a lot of guys. My best friend, his first wife, he used to have me write letters to her because obviously I can write. And I would write letters to his wife for him, in his thoughts. I put his thoughts in writing because he couldn't out debate her, but I could, and I could. And it just, and yeah, I'm doing this when I'm younger. The older me would be telling him like, "Hey man, get in this Bible, get your own understanding. Trust me, you get in this Bible long enough, you'll run rings around it." At that time, I did those. That wasn't the kind of advice. At that time, me and him both were, you know, halfway Farrakhan supporters, and uh, Nation of Islam guys or whatever. And so, but I just think about all the stupidity of my youth, and if I had just known, all I really needed, and if I had been in the right mind biblically when God sent me these women, I would have recognized them for what they were, a
Mm.
blessing from God. Like, hey, Jason, these are women that will follow you, follow me. Uh, they fit all your criteria of looks and beauty and smartness, and hell, one of them could write really well. It just, I sit there and just think if God sent me three women worthy of marriage that were all beautiful and met my there's somebody out there for everybody. We just don't know what we're looking for, and then we end up just choosing completely with our eyes, and whoever's the freakiest, whoever. curls our toes the best, and that's what's gotten Zion Williamson in trouble, and probably that's why uh, Barack Obama, some dude may have curled his toes.
Well,
Maybe Obama's problem.
but let's hope that some of the harlots out there can also change their ways and be saved through their relationships or encounters with men, right? I mean, one of my it's funny you say that. I have a child, my youngest son, Benjamin, is with a woman who comes from Thailand. She's half Thai, half Laotian, right? And Christianity has some roots in Thailand and Laos, but she's definitely much more of the Buddhist religious tradition than, or maybe you could Buddhism, Taoism, the Eastern Asian religious philosophy than any Christianity. Um, but my son, who I've had limited time with. I mean, he spends a lot of time with me now in his younger, very young years. I was still on the road and living out of town and stuff like that. But spends a lot of time with me now, and he loves the Bible. He reads the Bible on his own. He reads and this is not of my influence, right? I didn't come in and force a Bible on him and say you got to read this, you got to be a Christian. When we started to spend more time together, he reads the Bible on his own. And now I can see that influence on her in some ways, even though we're not together and we don't have that type of relationship, but I can see that influence on her. And I see that she recognizes that he loves and reads the Bible, even though he's 10 years old. And he's very, very sharp. I mean, he's a chip off the old block in that way. He'll talk about the Bible. He has an opinion about the things that he reads. So he's into it. It's not just let me just read for brownie points or anything like that. He goes to public school. So but hopefully some women can also be influenced, even in Zion's case. In Zion's case, maybe he can have an influence on her. I don't know. I'm just not precluding any miracles. But I wanted to ask you, as you were talking about that, I definitely agree with you about men having failed women. But the real question is, what are men willing to, and what can we feasibly, and in what manner of time, give up in order to renew our own relationship with Christ in time to save enough women to save us all? I mean, this is the trillion dollar, this is quadrillion dollar, this is the priceless question that mankind faces, because we've built, and I said this on the show, number one heresy of the West was the scientific method. What we've built here, so industrialized, so consumer based, so convenience based, so based on materialism and lust and pride and ego. What we've built today is so rooted in everything that is against God's will. What are we willing to give up in order to achieve a Christ based male leadership in today's society? I mean, even yourself, you were willing to give up the pinnacle of fame and fortune, right, and mainstream television to do your own thing and speak the gospel. But even you and myself, we're sitting here in front of cameras that were made in sweatshops from ill-gotten means. We know it. We all know it. We all carry an iPhone. I mean, what level are we willing to go to? What level do you think we have to go to in order to reconnect with God in a way that's meaningful and can be sustained?
I'm probably going to sound more cynical. Uh, Everything's going to be taken from us, Royce, and then we're going to snap out of it. And it feels like to perhaps me and you, like, well, they take what else is there left to take? It's going to get
Mm.
worse, and because there's so many of us in delusion. But what's going to happen to men of my age and younger uh, is it's going to be so crystal clear that we are, for lack of a better word, the bitches of women and the bitch of American society.
Mm.
Last to eat. smallest piece of the chicken in every way possible. In corporate America, last to get hired, first to get fired, tired of being the janitor at every major corporation. They're going to have guys as smart as you with your intellect sweeping floors while women like Mariah Mills or Stacey Abrams has executive jobs where someone like Royce White is sweeping the floor.
Mm.
And we're going to get so tired of eating that shit that we're going to snap out of it. We'll probably, by the time we snap out of it, we'll probably be in a position where there's nothing we can do about it.
Mm.
And we'll base the black man will be the Native American living on uh, some reservation.
Mm.
Again, it won't be type of reservation that Native Americans are on, but sitting at home, watching Netflix, cooking dinner for our wife, or if we're lucky enough to have one, or a girlfriend that will be bringing home the bacon. Uh, that type of we'd be better off on a Native American reservation than living these feminized lifestyles that we're going to be reduced to. That's what I look out and see, and that's why I'm just trying to sound the alarm because I'm just wondering these selfish men that are of my age that can't see the world that's being left for their
Mm.
sons and they don't want to do anything about it. They're going to relegate their sons to this feminized, emasculated lifestyle that many of them are leading right now. It's sad, but that's the black man, and I hate to get idolatrous, racial idol, but the black man right now has never been in a lower position in American society. I'll sound like Kanye. We were in a higher position in slavery than
In our own house, at least.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, than we are right now. And it's again, look at the people they've tried to install, from DeRay McKesson to Sean King, who ain't even black, to
Ibrahim X.
yeah, yeah. Wait until everybody finally wakes up and realizes who Barack Obama really is and was, and that's who they elected to represent us. That's who If you buy what Tucker Carlson and what the internet says, to represent the black man, they sent a gay man.
No, but
That
that
says something about
no,
us.
but be specific. Be specific. Black women. And it wasn't
Yeah.
just black women chose a gay man to represent black men. Okay. And it's not just black women, but white liberal women. And everybody sort of fell in line. There were a few black men that had a healthy skepticism about Obama from the beginning who said, he talks sharp, he looks clean, but he doesn't really seem like one of us. And his presidency surely showed that. Now he's actually taken a decent line of questioning from a mainstream media industrial complex that already has the narrative shaped. But he's actually taken some fluff questioning, like, what did you do for black people? And he's kind of like, well, I couldn't really do anything for black people because I was owned by other interests, right? But I just want to say, I agree with you, and I think we found this common ground. I didn't want to sound like I was disagreeing in the beginning, but one of the issues I see for men at the deepest spiritual level, political level, is we have accepted the rule of law as a means of protection for our own ambition at success. I don't know, fame, fortune, security. We've accepted the rule of law as a way to those ambitions, those selfish and narcissistic ambitions. That's the real crime of men. And when we gave over our freedom, our natural the authority, the authority of our position in the natural order, when we gave that over, it was only a matter of time before Satan, not women or men, but Satan would weaponize that. And that's what's happened here. Right? Like, for a man now to go against the female order, the female dominant order, the woman centric order, for a man to go against that, is political, cultural, and social suicide. And it could be judicial suicide, even. And it's not by accident that the Jeffrey Epsteins of the world are on video getting interviewed saying the way of the future is the way women think. I mean, when a Jeffrey Epstein, a man who has made a career from blackmailing political leaders and corporate leaders through sex trafficking, mostly of young women, but probably young boys too. For him to say that the way of the future is the way women think, why do women not stand up right away and go, wait a minute, if the perverts are saying it, if this is the part of the narrative, if this is a part of their narrative, how do we reject this? And men to say, hey, it's time to do away with this elitist establishment because it means to undermine the order and logic and sanity of men, right? Like even with the family courts, women, liberal women, Christian women, I don't care what kind of women, I don't care who they say they are, narcissistic women are going to start to take men's children and in their home, they're going to push LGBTQism on them. And they're going to use that as a means to take away custody from men, to not allow them to see their children at all, to give an upward deviation of merit of child support and spousal maintenance. Okay? When are men going to stand up and say the law is not the law if the lawmakers are corrupt? That's a huge part of this. We like the security of the law. We like the way it makes us feel. Another man can't kick in my door and kill me and my family and take all my treasures. But he can do it out there at the local park. He can do it at the local school. He can do it at the local basketball recreation center where your kid gets indoctrinated with riches and fortune as an ambition. He can do it all the other places, just not in your home. You like that your home feels. And guess what? When it was all said and done, now your home's not safe either. But we like the feeling of it, right? We have to turn back from this rules-based order. It's a weapon.
The most important thing we can do, and I can't, it's my thought, but it's not an original thought. There's this dude that was popular on the internet. He's kind of halfway disappeared now. We call it the Chronicles of Judah, 144. And he used to always say, protect your seed. And at the time, when I first started hearing him say that, I didn't fully understand but it's like now I do in terms of, again, and this is where I go back to like just some sexual discipline and that the most important thing you can do is protect your seed and quit thinking that a woman is doing you a favor by not requiring you to wear a condom. You're doing her the favor by taking the condom off. You're turning leverage and power and everything over to her. You're putting her in control so that you get a 10% better feeling, 5% better feeling. I don't know. Uh, it's crazy. It's suicide. It's why we're in this diminished position. We've so haphazardly spread our seed with any person. Our kids are then misraised and caught up in a relationship dispute between yourself and a woman you really don't care anything about, and kids are your greatest treasure, and it's really I didn't come to fully understand that until I realized, like, man, what an incredible blessing me and my brother had been to my parents. Greatest 401k you could imagine. You know, love my mother to death, but you know, being a woman jacked up her finances, but she never messed up her treasure. Me and my brother, and so far 10 times better than any 401k she could have ever acquired. But kids are our greatest investment, and we should be strategic and pragmatic about who we have kids with, and then we need to be diligent and passionate and persistent about how we develop and raise those kids, because they will serve you very well in your golden years, 20, 30, 40 years, last 40 years of your life. if done properly, uh, we got a long road back because we have sunken very far. We're going to sink even further. I was just when you were talking, I was thinking about. Did you see the pictures someone put out the other day of Megan Fox and her three kids?
Mm.
She's got three
No, I
sons.
didn't see it.
Yeah, young sons. Megan Fox, the actress, actor, nice looking little white woman or whatever. She got three
Oh, you're
kids.
talking about? I thought you meant Megan Good. My mind, Black Hollywood. My mind goes to Megan Good. You're talking about MGK's now ex-girlfriend Megan Fox, Transformers
Yeah, she
Megan
got three.
Fox,
Yeah,
the
she
the
got three kids.
Satanist.
Yeah, all I think three boys. All of them dress up as little girls.
Great,
Oh,
great,
I'm just
of
like,
course.
this is what we're looking at. This is the future.
Well, but my point again, and I agree with you. But my point again to caution men accepting the legitimacy. What were the four heresies of the West? Scientific method, democracy, computers, now AI. The two first ones, scientific method and scientific method, as in science, yes, but also industrialization, consumerism, corporations, that the whole science of economy, modern economy, the whole deal, and then democracy. We like it too much. We're too in love with it. I don't accept the legitimacy of the family court at all. So I don't accept the idea that a woman has legitimate leverage over you if you have a baby with her. I accept that if you play by the rules-based order, then women are always going to have leverage over you. And that's the real nitty-gritty we got to get down to now. A Jean Carroll and her sycophantic, psychotic political whims is always going to have leverage over a Donald J. Trump in the society we live in, whether you protect your seat or not. I mean, there's just kind of a blatant female-centric rules-based order out here. What we don't want to do is give up having children altogether, because we need more Jason Whitlocks. You're not too old right now. Go find you a woman.
I Al Pacino proved
Yeah,
that for
that's what I'm
sure. Him and
saying. Yeah,
Robert De
we
Niro.
give me 10 Jason Whitlocks, but we can't allow the family courts to continue to aid and abet in women's rejection of God and the natural order. And again, people don't even, the family court is so awful. It's just so awful. It has completely hijacked this nation's youth. And we got to start to turn back from some of these institutions. But I know you got to run. I appreciate the time, Jason. Any parting shots? Tell us about Fearless. What's going on right now? The audience continues to grow. Everybody loves you. Is the great Tucker Carlson going to appear soon? I want to see Tucker there in the studio. He better make his way up to Nashville and sit face to face with the great Jason Whitlock. What do we got on the griddle?
What's next are two things, Royce. I've had a song made that we're putting a video to, hopefully this weekend, about reclaiming the rainbow.
Mm.
I'm very excited about the song. Bryson Gray put it together for me. It's awesome. And then on Tuesday, I think we're going to have the first Fearless Twitter Spaces, and you're invited. Everyone's invited, but we want to move some of our conversation to Twitter, and we're going to do a Twitter Spaces. I think at 7:30 Central on Tuesday, and the first topic is going to be about, is Black Twitter a good or bad thing? So stay tuned for that.
Oh, yeah, I can answer that question now. Black Twitter psychotic, but we love you, Jason. We appreciate your leadership. I can't wait to participate in the Twitter space on Tuesday. That's going to be awesome. Make sure to cut my mic off, because I get rambling and rolling sometimes. Thank you to all the audience out there for being with us again for another episode of Please Call Me Crazy, this family and friends episode. Make sure to tune into Fearless at 6 p.m. Central, Monday through Friday on YouTube. Make sure to follow Jason on Twitter, the real Jason Whitlock. Thank you for
That's IG. Real Jason Whitlock is Instagram. At Whitlock Jason is
at
Twitter.
Whitlock Jason on Twitter. We appreciate your time. We appreciate your candor. Thank you for giving us some wise advice as young men and how to better be Christ-based leaders in our society today. I hope all of you enjoyed the conversation, and we look forward to having Jason back in the near future. The fight continues. Godspeed, brother. Thank you.